Hello and welcome. I just wanted to reflect on my last video. I'm filming this before I put that video out because I don't want to react to comments as such. I just wanted to talk and sort of reflect on what happened during that video. I'll try and be as honest as I can be. Yeah, I went out with the intention to camp in the snow. I was very excited because where I live we don't get lots of snow. We get maybe a couple of days a year, and this year the snow fell on a Thursday night and I was working Friday, and decided that after work I was going to rush out and camp. And I think, I don't think it was a bad idea. It turned into a bit of a disaster, but I think it's a good thing for me because I learned from it. It was last night that I went out, and I did quite a few things wrong, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Those of you that watch my videos regularly, you know that I'm in no way an expert at sort of outdoor living, bushcraft or wild camping. I'm a bumbler. I'm learning. I go out, I make mistakes, but I have fun. I'm not doing survival as such. I'm just going out and enjoying myself. I had a romantic notion that camping in the snow would be glorious, and I'm sure in the right conditions, with the appropriate clothing and the right equipment and the right preparation, it would be glorious. And this isn't going to stop me doing it again, but it will make me plan it a little bit better. So let's talk about what happened. So I went not massively far from home, but it was a new area for me. I'd never camped there before. I didn't know what to expect as far as what the ground was like, what kind of trees, what kind of wood, firewood sourcing and all that sort of thing. I just thought I'll wing it and it'll be fine, which I think in any other time of year I think that would be fine, but in this conditions maybe it wasn't such a bright idea. Places where I normally go, I know the kind of wood that's there, I know that there's lots of dead standing, or I know other places I'll know that there's kind of sort of dead pine or whatever. The other wood I go has got lots of chestnut, and they just stand perfectly straight, easy to cut, easy to split, easy to process. And there's loads of silver birch in that wood, so there's always that to fall back on for fire making. This wood had not a lot of dead wood. The dead wood that was there was oak, which once I got a fire going I'm sure would have been okay, but having had a lot of wet weather and then a lot of snow, and it was just starting to warm up a bit yesterday, so the snow was starting to melt, but what came in as I was arriving was sleet. I think if it had just been snowing and it was colder, I probably would have been a bit better off, but the sleet was relentless. If you watch that video, even when I'd only been there half hour and I was doing a little intro bit, I was getting wet then, and the waterproof jacket I put on it just happened to be in my car, and I chucked it on because the sleet had started. I didn't have that packed, it was just on the back seat of my car, so I didn't even think of that. But I didn't have waterproof trousers on. I was dressed for winter, so I had fleece lined trousers, I had my down jacket and like a merino wool hat in my bag, but I didn't have any waterproofs, and I should have had waterproof trousers. So it was badly prepared, badly thought out, I think. And I think what caused it was my excitement of getting out there, because it looked so pretty. And I spent the day at work, dead excited. I was giggling away to myself, going, "Oh, I'm going out camping tonight. It's going to be so great." And I had visions of finding a tree with a branch, making a A-frame over the top of it, so that I could sit in there with my back against the tree with a fire at the front of the A-frame, build a nice fire reflector. This was my romantic notion. When I got there, it was hilly ground that when you trod, water was welling up from the ground. I didn't put any ground sheet down. What I'd brought with me was the footprint of a tent, as that was going to be my ground sheet, and I was going to pin that down, but I didn't do that because Tink was soaking wet, and I didn't want her walking all over it when I first got there and making it wet and horrible before I even got to sit on it. So I thought I would hold off on the ground sheet, and so I was kneeling on my sit pad, which is this big, and as my knees were kneeling on it, the water was just welling over the top of it, so I ended up kneeling in puddles. I was snapping wood over my legs, and the wood had thick moss on it, which was soaking wet, and you could squeeze the water out of it. So there's me snapping away over my leg in my rush, and so my trousers were wet right the way down. As I fell over as well, onto my bum, so I'd sat in it as well. So I was soaked through. When I got home and I took my boots off, my walking boots, which are waterproof, my socks, I could wring the water out of them, and I think the water had come in the top of them. Where I'd been kneeling, it had probably gone through the lace holes and what have you. My cuffs, where I had that waterproof jacket on, my sleeves were wet up to there. This bit, the collar was all wet, and I didn't really notice how cold I was getting, because I was sawing wood, rushing to get shelter up, carrying wood and splitting wood and all that kind of thing. So I didn't even notice that I was wet half the time. I kept saying, "Oh, I'm getting a bit wet," but I didn't notice how wet till I got home and took everything off and dropped my trousers on the ground with a squelch, and literally wrung the water out my socks. So while I was working, it was okay, but I think my core temperature had dropped quite a bit. Hypothermia begins to set in. My hands had gone numb, my feet had gone numb. I gashed my hand open. I didn't even feel it. I kind of made light of it on the film, but it's a nasty cut, and I didn't really feel it. And when I got home and I got in the bath, my fingers hurt and my feet hurt where the warm water got to them. So I was cold. And I say, as you get hypothermia, it leads to slowness mentally, so bad decision making, tendency for accidents. That cutting my hand, banging my head, I'd set myself up under a branch. I knew it was there, and yet I stood up and cracked myself on the head. I got 2 or 3 cuts across my head, and I was wearing this hat, which is canvas. So whatever I hit my head on must have been a couple of pokey bits off of that tree. It was oak, so that's hardwood, and I stood up with a bit of force. And I did get very cross. I got quite cross at Tink as well at times, because she was being a pain. I think because she was not happy. I think she was very cold. I shouldn't have taken her at all. I should have left her at home. I nearly did. I ummed and ahed about taking her, and in the end, again, get my bag ready. She's at the door wanting to come, but ouch, picking out bits of scab out my head. Yeah, she was at the door wanting to come, and I just went, oh, okay then. So I realised that when it's wet and very, very cold, maybe I should leave her at home, because she added to my worries. Again, a symptom of sort of early stage hypothermia is irritability, and while I'm a very placid guy, off camera there was a lot of swearing, there was a lot of muttering to myself, and I was getting annoyed at things that don't normally annoy me. So overall, I think it was a very good decision to go home. I spoke with John in the evening, via messaging, and he said, good not to let sort of ego get in the way, and that's what it is, isn't it? Ego and pride. They were the things that would have made me stay there, wanting to show everyone that I can do these things, and I think it was sensible to just say it's not safe, because it did freeze last night. The temperatures went right down, and say once I'd stopped doing everything and I was then sat still or even sat in my sleeping bag, potentially that could have been really dangerous. So yeah, I'm glad I decided to call it. And when I did, I sat, after I banged my head, I sat for a while thinking, not sure what to do. I was a little bit dazed, I think, to be honest. I was, as I said, I was shaking then. Hands were shaking, my body was shaking, and that was after, just a 10-minute sit down. I think trying to then be still for the duration of the evening once it's dark, and then through the night, I think that would have been a big ask. And one of the problems, I suppose, was the time frame. I got there 2 hours, well, 2.5 hours, I say, till it would be pitch black, but 2 hours till sunset, as it were. And any of you that go camping, 2 hours is probably enough time to put up a shelter and gather firewood and light a fire. But when you film, everything takes that much longer. So I was conscious of the daylight, I was conscious of the time, and it just made me rush. And being ill-prepared clothing-wise, plus the rushing and the cold, led to, bad decisions, which led to accidents. Which led me to turn it in and go home. I'm not thinking of it as a failure, I'm thinking it as a learning curve. Quite a steep one last night. You say, I was okay about it all, but when I got home, I had a bath, I had something to eat, but I then I had fire in the living room, and I was wrapped right up in clothes, but I was still cold. I was cold in my core, and I couldn't get warm. And when I went to bed, I was cold still. I get hot in the night normally, and I don't sleep in anything because I'm too hot. But I was in full pajama gear, I had an extra blanket on the bed, and I was still cold. And woke up this morning, my head is really sore, so that obviously hurt more than I realised it did at the time. I didn't half swear though. I cut all that bit out, but yeah, I banged my head. I let out a little cheeky swear word, and then I walked off and had a proper rant at myself, and then I had to calm myself down and sit for a little bit and just think, stop and think, which is probably the best thing I did all night, was to sit down and just have a little think about it and turn the camera off and not, not try and film everything. Because I try to, film the process of what I'm doing, but it all had to go off in the end while I just sat for a bit, and that led me to make, I think, the right decision to just jack it in and go. And I'm sure I'll get stick off some people, and I'm sure other people will say, yep, you were right. But it's my life, it's my decision, and I'll do what I must. So it doesn't matter what people say. I don't really know what the point of this little chat was, but I spent the evening reflecting. I couldn't sleep very well last night. I was so tired, but I couldn't sleep. I was just thinking about stuff I did wrong, not beating myself up about it, just musing on it, reflecting on it, and I just thought, I'm going to just sit and chat and just sort of get it off my chest a little bit and try and be honest, because someone said to me, there's lots of channels that pretend to be Ray Mears and Bear Grylls and all that sort of thing, everything goes perfect, but in reality it doesn't always go perfect. People have accidents, people make bad decisions, and you wouldn't be human if that didn't happen to you. So it is what it is. We're all learning. But that's probably about it. I'm probably done chatting. I'm gonna spend some time with the family now and continue to nurse my injured pride. But I'll be back. Thanks for watching this. I'd appreciate the comments. I try and answer all comments. I tend to ignore the ones that are just abusive, because I get a few of them, but constructive criticism, I generally take that on the chin. Love and support's always nice, because it makes you feel good. But yeah, just keep the communication open. Comments are welcome, and I'll try and answer everyone. I'll read everyone, but yeah. Anywho, time to go. Have a good day. I'll see you soon.